Hello and welcome to Debate right here at Press TV. I'm Marzieh Hashemi. Thanks so much for being with us. More than 3 years after the start of anti-regime protests in Bahrain. Well, the crackdown by the Bahraini regime continues. Not only regular Bahraini citizens are paying the price for wanting freedom, some even losing their citizenship, but human rights activists are also being jailed. And of course, during the course of the repressive crackdown, many protesters have been tortured and many people have lost their lives. All this is being done with the continued support of countries which say they represent and believe in democracy.
A Bahraini court has extended the detention of human rights defender Mariam Al-Khawaja for another 10 days. Mariam was arrested last week upon arrival in Bahrain to visit her ailing father, Abdul Hadi Al-Khawaja. The prominent rights defender is on hunger strike against life imprisonment given to him in connection to Bahrain's 2011 revolution. According to her lawyer, the authorities have accused Mariam Al-Khawaja of assaulting a police officer, a charge that she denies. In reaction to the news, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights expressed serious concern about the case.
We urge the government to take immediate steps to release Ms. Khawaja and all human rights defenders and individuals detained for the peaceful exercise of their rights.
People also took to the streets calling for an end to the crackdown. But it seems that all calls for release of political prisoners have fallen on deaf ears. Some analysts believe that the crackdown on peaceful protesters will continue as long as the regime is backed by the West.
That the killer Khalifa regime is hand in glove with the instigators of the Takfiri and the Islamic State. The Khalifas are hand in glove with the Saudis, and it is the Saudis who are the finance and the vicious ideologues of the Takfiri.
Critics also say the West is supporting the Al-Khalifa regime because of its own interests. Although Bahrain is a tiny Persian Gulf monarchy, it has enjoyed close ties with the West, particularly with the UK and the US. It is also home to US Navy's 5th Fleet. Since March 2011, the Al-Khalifa regime has choked peaceful opposition voices for change and democratic rights by killing scores of people and detaining thousands. Despite gross human rights violations, the Western countries have so far exercised double standard towards Bahrain and never called on Manama to stop its violations.
I'd like to welcome my guest to the program out of London, Bahrain human rights activist Mr. Nabil Rajab, and the chairman of Conservative Arab Network, Mr. Wafiq Mustafa, also out of London. Thank you so much for being with us. Well, let me start off with Mr. Mustafa. The latest situation we've seen, human rights activist Mariam Al-Khawaja detained at the airport when she arrived in her home country. Do you consider this illegal or fair, what is being done?
Of course, it is illegal and is a big concern to detain a young lady like Mariam. The problem with human rights is a big issue in a country like Bahrain, and it's very important for communal cohesion is to stop this practice of taking people liberty away, confiscating their mobiles or belongings, like what happened to Mrs. Khawaja. I mean, we know, despite United States have a huge interest in Bahrain, have the 5th Fleet anchored there and headquarters, Mrs. Paxi have expressed concern on behalf of the State Department today. Human rights organization. The human rights issue is a big problem in the Middle East. Was it in Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Gulf countries? Almost every country in the Arab world have an issue. They should work collectively to stop this practice of abusing people's liberties. But I think it'll be impossible to tackle it in one state or small state like Bahrain. It got to have to be collective action, plus the fact, as we know, there is a lot of problems in this particular region of ISIS, as we know, in Iraq and Syria, and there is a huge terror threat. There is security vacuum, security problem, and a political vacuum too. And addressing the Middle East in that way, it has to have a comprehensive way of overlooking to the political problems, because it's not going to be solved with piecemeal.
Okay, well, let me turn to Mr. Rajab. Interesting comments by Mr. Mustafa, but I think not directly addressing the situation at hand as far as Bahrain. You, Mr. Rajab, of course, yourself, human rights activist, and recently just freed. What does it mean not even to be able to speak, and even as a human rights activist, to be sent to jail, and basically international entities may condemn it verbally, but still you spent a long time in jail? Your take, sir.
Yes, it's very clear now. Bahrain government does not respect the international community, does not respect United Nations, does not respect United Nations institution. And the past few days, many people have condemned arresting of Al-Khawaja and asked for her release and her father release, as he was sentenced for life imprisonment and as he is entering his 15 days in a hunger strike. As you know, Bahrain government does not respect people, not only their people, but does not respect anybody. And that is because they know they have the green light from some Western power. They can do anything they want, and nobody gonna criticize them from their friends ally like United Kingdom and United States. Unfortunately, at the time where you see a lot of condemnation coming from all over the world, criticizing Bahraini human rights record, which is one of the worst today according to human rights organization. You see a minister in the UK yesterday praising the reform in Bahrain in the parliament yesterday. That is very disappointing statement. That statement makes us very upset and very angry, not seeing the UK government only abandoning our struggle for democracy and human rights, but supporting dictators. And that's because of the influence of money, because of the influence of arms sale. Day by day, unfortunately, those dictators have a lot of investment in this part of the world, in many civilized countries, and as much money they put, as much money business they have, as much influence they have. And unfortunately, this influence being very negative. Okay. They can buy or they vote silence from many countries, mainly United Kingdom. And that's why you don't see people. And that's why we went yesterday morning, we protested out the office of the Prime Minister here in UK, showing our anger, raising our concern.
Okay, stay with me, Mr. Rajab. Stay with me, sir. Sorry to interrupt you. I want to get Mr. Mustafa in on this. Excuse me, Mr. Mustafa, you were shaking your head in disagreement. What part of Mr. Rajab's comments you disagreed with?
No, I don't disagree in the whole with what he said. Well, but the United States have expressed its concern. For example, of course there is an interest, commercial interest, political interest, military interest. It's quite a complex situation. That's why I said it needs an overall overlook in the Arab world. We need a great reform to stop these abuses. What I mean, of course our heart with this young lady, and I'm sure everybody in a democracy, but the Middle East is going in turmoil in every direction, possible direction. Hundreds and thousands of people are killed every week. So we need a comprehensive understanding of peace, philosophy of peace, philosophy of respecting each other's rights. So the human rights abuses should stop as a whole.
Your take, Mr. Rajab. Other guests in London is basically saying that the United States, for example, has condemned the situation that is taking place in Bahrain. What does that verbal condemnation mean in your perspective if it's not followed up with any type of pressure?
Well, United States and lately been very silent on Bahrain. Condemnation, if it does not followed by a serious action, it means nothing. And as you've seen, the Undersecretary of United States government came to Bahrain to talk about the human rights issue, and he was kicked out of the country by our government. And a few days ago, the State Department spokeswoman was asked about that, And she said that the Bahrain government again asked him to, or invited him to go to Bahrain. But again, Bahrain government reacted saying that we did not invite him to come to Bahrain. United States were humiliated by Bahrain for the past several occasions. And that, again, what I'm trying to point out, influence of the rulers in America and in Europe is becoming so strong that they will be very soon changing government. We used to have more influence of those Western government in our region, but I can tell you and I can assure you, the influence of those rulers on the money and the arms sales has become so strong in those countries, they can silence government. So when under secretary of an United States government, which is a superpower, kicked out by this tiny small state, and not even a reaction by the State Department, not even a reaction by United States government, it is a humiliation. And it's not because of Bahrain, I'm pretty sure it's not because of Bahrain, because of the fears from the Saudis, because of the fears from losing business, losing a lot of arms sale. I isolate myself, I isolate my issue, I isolate my case from the regional conflict. No, we have a struggle in my country, Bahrain. Struggle for democracy. We are ruled by dictators. We've been treated like slaves in my country. A big percentage of my population today are behind bar, not because of any sectarian issue, not because of anything. It's because we are ruled by bad government, by bad ruling family, who treated us as second and third class, who have at least kept 5 to 7% of my population in jail in the past 3 years, whom have made thousands of people go to exile in the past 2 to 3 years, who made thousands of people living in hiding, who are raiding tenths of houses on a daily basis, who are importing people from outside in sectarian basis to change the demography of the state, who are pushing the people economically, socially, culturally to leave the indigenous people and replace them with the new nation. This is the most dangerous crime committed in today's world. Nobody have done that. No government that I know have done that other than South Africa.
All right.
Practicing.
Stay with me, Mr. Rajab. What about that, Mr. Mustafa? We have seen different reactions coming out of West with these different government or entities that have taken place in the region. We saw a different reaction, or we're seeing a different reaction, for example, out of Washington and London, when concerning the situation on the ground in Syria, even from the very beginning, or even Libya. But here, when we look at the situation in Bahrain, people who have not taken up arms, who have peacefully demonstrated for more than 3 years now that we have witnessed the use of poisonous tear gas, people losing their citizenship, people being tortured, or people being jailed, and still basically the West says nothing. So what's the difference? Why one reaction with one country and a totally different one now with Bahrain?
Well, human rights respect must come from inside. The government of Bahrain must respect human rights, must free this lady. I totally support human rights in Bahrain and all the Middle East. As for why so much more noises on Syria in Libya, because in Syria there is atrocities. There is thousands of people being killed, not just being imprisoned. And unfortunately, the Middle East is a mess. You don't know where to start or where to end. That's why I think
let me just jump in here. Let me just jump in here, sir. Let me just jump in here, because we know initial stages of the situation in Syria, when there were people being killed, of course. However, percentage-wise, if we look at the situation that's happening in Bahrain, and you just heard some statistics that Mr. Rajab has talked about, Bahrain has a very small population, and the percentage of what is being happening and the percentage of people that are being infected, very, very high. So what does it take for Washington or for London to put the pressure on the dictator? You're saying that human rights must come from within, but when you're dealing with a dictatorship, a monarchy, that is basically continue to step on the right of the native people, then what about those entities outside who say they represent human rights and democracy? Why do they not put the pressure that they definitely could put if they wanted to?
we do put pressures. Someone like me does in my limited way. But however, real politics in the world, as we said earlier, the United States have its fleet headquarters in Bahrain, so it has to balance its own interests accordingly. So
its interests are, its interests are more important than the human rights of the Bahraini people?
Human rights are very, very important, of course, and I support human rights in Bahrain, and I'm sure all the free world and the American governments have expressed its concern. Of course, it has got a limitation how far it goes. You see, that's why I said human rights should come from within more than from without. The Arab world wants to pressure from outside all the time.
All right, your take, Mr. What do you see this situation happening on the ground in Bahrain? Our other guest, Mr. Mustafa, said that it has to come from within. And of course, what we're seeing within is continual demonstrations and people taking to the streets. But we also see from outside have come in Saudi troops and foreign troops also who have actually crushed or tried their best to crush the situation. So in that case, when the people on the ground, the locals, are actually demonstrating continually, but the crackdown is so tough, also sometimes from foreign entities. So what do you think it takes? Do you think it will take, for example, the United States or the United Kingdom to actually get involved?
Well, we didn't ask United States to be involved militarily. We don't want to ask the international community to send the troops. But we asked them to stop the troops to get in Bahrain, to kill our own people. We asked them to stop the Saudis in sending their tanks to Bahrain, to stop a revolution calling for democracy, justice, and human rights. We asked them to stop Bahrain government to bring thousands and tens of thousands of mercenaries from outside to kill our own people, to demolish our own mosque. We have daily basis tens of houses being raided, things, gold, money being stolen by those mercenaries that government brings from outside. We have daily basis, tens of people have been arrested, beaten, bloody, and blood you can see in their faces. A lot of thousands of pictures you can see online. In a daily basis come how people being arrested by foreign mercenaries Bahrain government bring. You see your people that owns the country, been leaving the country, and the ruling family bringing new people and replacing the nation by withdrawing nationality from part of the people and then giving nationality to different people. That makes you very upset. We think the United States, we think Britain, we think the European Union can do a lot to stop those crimes happening to Bahrain, like they did with South Africa. Although they acted very late in South Africa, but Bahrain government is practicing as much or worse policy by a sectarian apartheid. Now they're separating Shias and Sunnis in a place where they're living. They are not allowing Shia to work on government institutions and the police and the army. In most of the government institutions, Shia were kicked out, and not because of the Sunni, because of people being brought by our government to take the position and the place. As I tell you, there are thousands of teachers today are unemployed, and Bahrain government going to bring teachers from Saudi, from Egypt, from Jordan, just to make sure that those jobs are not taken by Shia.
Okay.
When you have thousands and tens of thousands of people are unemployed, you see Bahrain government going to Jordan, going to Syria, and bringing police and bringing army. For your own information, 80% of our police and of our army are made from people brought from outside the country. And the local people are unemployed. People are targeted in their life. People economically are targeted.
Okay, stay with me, Mr. Najab. Stay with me, Mr. Rajab. Your take, Mr. Mustafa. I mean, how fair is that to bring in foreigners, basically, and at the same time we know that many Bahrainis are actually losing their own citizenship, that they can get the jobs where the natives cannot get the jobs, and also we see that the demography is basically trying to be changed. What's the answer? What should be done to stop that?
There is a huge polarization inside Bahrain, like in many other Arab countries. I think there got to be reconciliation. Bahrain is a very small state, and it's possible to have reconciliation between particularly Shia and Sunni, between the government and the public, because what other choices they have? They're too tiny country to go into civil war. They are in a very hot area of the world in the Gulf region. So I think reconciliation probably is the best option for Bahrain, and freeing prisoners, freeing political prisoners as a priority.
Your take, Mr. Rajab, what is the key? Is reconciliation possible at this time?
Well, reconciliation, I mean, I'm with the dialogue. But again, I want to correct the information of the gentleman speaking. We don't have a problem, a Shia and Sunni problem. We have a problem between the government, a ruling family, which happen to be a Sunni, and the people of Bahrain, which happen to be majority of them are a Shia. It's not something based on sectarian. It's a political issue about right, about justice, about equality, about freedom, about independence of the judiciary, about police that respect human rights, about people who want to live in equal manner, people want to be treated as the other. It's not about religion at all. Although Bahrain government tried to present it as it is sectarian because of the Gulf ruler, they want to divide the region based on the sect. So to mobilize Sunnis to support those dictators and to marginalize the movement in the region, that is asking for freedom and for democracy. It's not about at all about religion. It's about justice, about standard, about criteria that European countries fought for hundreds of years ago to achieve the democracy that they have today. We want the same thing. We want a similar thing. Yes, if there is a possibility for a dialogue, for reconciliation, we welcome that. But the Bahraini regime refusing anything. And instead, they are kicking out everybody out of the country or out of their job, squeezing people economically. So they made them beggars, and they let them go out of the country. This is the problem. It's about the ruling family try to dominate everything. The parliament, the judiciary, the executive power, everything in the hand of a family. You have a government, at least 60 to 70% of the ministers are from a family. You have all the institution, whether it's financial institution or political one, all owned or covered by a member of ruling family. There are no room for people like me to come and speak the way I'm speaking in your channel right now. If I have a chance or have a room to speak, I was in jail. I was just out after 2 years I spent in jail because of Twitter expressing my freedom of expression. I was just asking people to take part in a peaceful protest, and I spent 2 years for that. And there are hundreds and thousands of people, as I'm talking to you, they are in jail. There are tens of people are being detained, arrested on a daily basis because they said something in a Twitter. They said something in a TV station. They criticized the king. They criticized the police. This is the situation we don't want. It's not about anything to do with religion. We respect people no matter where is their political or religious background. It's not our business. We want to apply justice in our country. We want to apply equality.
Rajab,
we want to apply freedom.
Thank you so much. I'm so sorry we're out of time. I appreciate you being with us. Bahraini human rights activist Mr. Nabil Rajab out of London, and Chairman of Conservative Arab Network Mr. Wafiq Mustafa, also out of London. And as always, we appreciate you viewers for being with us for another debate. I'm Marzieh Hashemi signing out for myself and all the crew right here in Tehran. Thanks so much for being with us, and goodbye.